Hello and welcome to my podcast. Do me a favor, subscribe to the John Keim Report wherever you get your podcasts. If you're watching on YouTube later, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. You can find us there as part of Ampire Media, Ampire. Always much appreciated when you tune in. And don't forget, you can read my work on ESPN.com. For you Gold Club members, I'll be doing a private Zoom Thursday night, 7:30 Eastern Time. Look for the link. Join me there. Ask your questions. Bring your concerns. Whatever you want to do. As you can see, I'm joined by a special guest, Nicki Jhabvala. Sitting in for Julian tonight is his mom, Nicki Jhabvala. So she will be the ones answering questions. And so, Julian, I appreciate you allowing your mom to stay up this late with you. So, Nicki, thanks for coming on. But everybody get a good look at Julian. He's a cute kid. And if you want to see 1 or 100 pictures, you can follow Nicki on Instagram. So, and you can read Nicki's work on WashingtonPost.com. So there you go. So, Nicki, thanks for joining me. And I know you may have to skedaddle with him in a few minutes. Yeah. We don't know. Good. So we'll just take whatever time you get. But let's start with this. So 1-1, has anything through 2 games surprised you at all?
Yeah, I thought the defense would be better. Sorry to start it out with a negative there, but I thought they would be. You know, they don't have sort of the star power that even the team last year had to start, especially up front. They still have John Allen and Daron Payne, which, should be plenty up front. But, they don't have the big names in the back. They have Bobby Wagner in year 13, right? Frankie Louvu came in. They have talent, but it's not showing up on Sundays. The secondary is still getting torched on a number of plays. The front, they're getting pressure statistically, but they're not getting home. And it doesn't feel like the rush and the secondary, the coverage is married at all. It just feels like guys are out of sync. Missed tackles, blown coverages, things that we've seen in years past. That's the biggest surprise for me.
And let's stick with the defense because that is a concern because how much better can it get? And it has to get better. So when watching the Giants the other day, they use a lot of max protections. They're double teaming the hell out of Allen and Payne. Mm-hmm. And I wasn't sure, because Nicki, sometimes after games, the assumption is, they're just getting double teamed all over the place. And you watch the film, you say, they're really not.
Yeah.
I think they are. And I also think, so I wonder how much, how do they change that? But also how much of that, when you watch those guys second half, I almost wonder if they started running out of gas a little bit and they need a guy like Johnny Newton to kind of get to a point where he can play more than 12 snaps. But what have you thought about that in particular? And can that, how can you improve that?
Yeah, I think for one, you need more help off the edge to kind of take the pressure off these guys, to create some one-on-ones for these guys. Otherwise, the offenses can devote, 2 guys on them consistently because they don't have to worry about a threat from the edge. So they need their edge guys to really step up. I think probably blitzing more could help. Just throw in more looks, more threats from different places. And, its most simplest form should help. But yeah, I was actually looking at this earlier today. Your website, ESPN, says that Jonathan Allen has been doubled 69% of the time of his pass rushes, which is slightly higher than last year. I think they had him at 66 last year, but 69 is a pretty good clip. That's tough. And Daron he's not on the pass rush win rate rankings, but you can see off the film that he's getting doubled a fair amount. So help off the edge, help from the linebackers. I mean, they got to be able to get home.
I agree. And I think, it's funny, Nicki, because watching those double teams, especially even in the run game, and part of the thing I want to find out this week, are they asking the tackles to play a little bit differently than the past? Or in the past, it was, I know it was 2 gap, 1 gap, whatever, but it seemed like a little bit more square. Now, at times, Payne and Allen, both sometimes, it seems like gaps are being created with guys with their goal to get upfield. And so, and see, I think Julian agrees with that. But totally. I wonder, and then and there's sometimes the gap gets a little bit wider because somebody gets a little bit too far out. And, I agree with Quinn that I think Luvu and Wagner were pretty active. And there's sometimes like when they're attacking the line, they get the double teams off them, right? Like you said, bring some pressures off there, but it's going to be a difficult way to live. The other thing, Nicki, that I wonder with some of the pressure, like, they started slanting the D line in the second half a little bit more on some of the run plays, right? I think that helped at times. But with the Quinn Witt pressures in Dallas, for example, I don't know that we've seen those yet, because I wonder if they're a little bit concerned how they hold up on the outside. And if you're playing more zone than you want, can you run those games? So that's the hard part, is to know, like, well, let me ask you this. Do you feel the front seven is more fixable than the back?
Yes, I do. Because they have veterans up front. They have talent up front. Not to say they don't have talent on the back end, but we've seen these guys play at a high level before. D end was always going to be not necessarily a concern, a question mark, certainly. After they traded away Montez and Chase Young, I mean, Montez is really the one for me. When he played his best, he's a heck of a player, and he's size-wise, athleticism. He's the biggest loss there. And finding key guys there that could play within the scheme, but also be a big enough threat to alleviate some of this pressure off their inside guys was huge. And they gave Dorrance Armstrong a pretty sizable contract. That's one of their larger ones, along with Luvu. And Cleveland Farrell, I mean, he's probably overdrafted where he was, but he's still a good player. He's just, age is probably catching up with him a bit. But they need help on the edge. And I think that was probably a big reason for trying to get Jamin to really get up to speed on the edge. I mean, he's another athletic freak. Wasn't really making it inside at linebacker, but get him off the edge, he could do some damage. But going back to what you said about Johnny Newton, having him on a pitch count right now, as Dan Quinn said, kind of forced him to have 5 DTs active, so they had to make Jamin a healthy scratch. But yeah, they need help on the edge. And I think the things that are clearly fixable to me are technique issues. I mean, even Bobby Wagner is missing tackles, which just seems odd. So if they can clean those up, if they can get on the same page, they should be a lot better up front. The secondary could be a tougher fix. I mean, even their reserves. I mean, Michael Davis started for Emmanuel Forbes, then got benched for Noah I. I'm calling him Noah I. I can't pronounce his last name. Yeah, it doesn't work like that for me. But yeah, they don't have the starting talent. They don't have the depth there. Mikey Sainristil, I think he can be a good player. He's still young, and we're seeing sort of the rookie mistakes that you would see in a corner. And playing that, especially for a rookie, playing in space in the slot is difficult. So, yeah, I think they need more talent on the back end and to improve technique issues and communication on the front.
Yeah, and I think I'm more optimistic. And the one guy I want to see more of, I'm curious to see how he develops, is Johnny Newton. And because, watching him the other day, he showed some energy off the ball. Now, I think some of that too is you've got to get used to. I mean, this is the first time he's played an NFL game. Like he hadn't even played in the preseason, no joint practices. So he looked like a guy who was just kind of out there to provide energy in those 12 plays. And there were a couple of times I thought there were some things I'm like, I really like this. Like he could be a problem if he starts to get this down, right? But how long is that going to take? And somebody did ask me, like, how could these guys be tired? They only played 22 minutes because they're getting double teamed every freaking play. Like that's not easy. You're having 600 pounds or more on you every play when they're in there. And so like that wears you out. And yes, I think ordinarily, if you have the good rotation, all that, you stay fresh. But I think that is partly why, it was. And so, I do feel more optimistic that you can get that fixed, because I think some of that is time together. The corner stuff is going to be a struggle because I just don't know. Now, I think St. Just, I think he did a nice job, but the problem is, and so like, I think he plays more fundamentally sound, right? And when he gets beat, it's going to be because he's not a number one corner. and he's going to be asked to play Jamar Chase and Marvin Harrison Jr. and CeeDee Lamb. You know what I mean? Like he's playing guys above the level. So I have more concerns there than anything else. And, and Jeremy Chin too, like you talk about missed tackles. He had one on Jones. Yeah. And then there was one, it's like, there's sometimes you try to say, who's the responsibility here? You're in the gap is and so I don't know, Nicki, I think I'm a little, I'm more optimistic about the front because I think there's more to come together with than I am with the back and with the corner play. So, that's kind of where I'm at. What level, if you say, okay, the ceiling for that group could be what in your eyes?
Certainly better than what it is now. I don't know. That's a hard one because we've never seen this group to play together really. So, for the first two games are not what you wanted, not what you expected, but what the ceiling is, I don't know because we've never seen them at their best once. I mean, I think Cleveland Farrell was hurt he was hurt for at least one preseason game, I think, right? Certainly the Jets game. So did we even see the full front at all in preseason? I kind of think we didn't. So so
Wagner play. So
it's hard to say. I mean, I think you take some solace in looking at what Joe Witt and Dan Quinn did in Dallas and getting some guys that were maybe considered reserve level to play really, really well. But it's hard to really make any sort of comparisons because of Micah Parsons. They don't have a Micah Parsons. Like that guy can do so much. You can't really compare defenses. But for as much as they've preached development and attacking style and tackling, you gotta hope that they can get some of these issues resolved, and that'll kind of clear up, at least as you said, some of the things in the front seven.
Right. And I think that's a good point too, because there were a handful of plays the other day. Now it's the Giants, but it's also Malik Neighbors. You're in position to stop Neighbors twice for short gains. You take a bad angle, you miss the tackle, right? So and then you're on the crosser, the first crosser he has, Wagner bumps into Davis. The second one is just speed, and he beats St. Juste across the middle. So that's gonna. He's a really good receiver, But there are some things where it's like, okay, then on one of the touchdowns, the first one where they had the bunch formation, like I don't know, I still don't know. I watched it a number of times. I sent it to people who are involved in football. I'm like, I'm not sure quite what they're doing. I think they just got fooled by what the Giants ran. I think the concept was really good. More than it, as much as anything. But I think there are things you can improve on. I mean, we're not looking at a top half defense, I don't think, but you need to play a lot better, especially on third down. So let's flip it over to the other side of the ball. What has anything surprised you on that side?
It's still too early, so I don't want to get ahead of myself on this one, but I think a couple of their veterans that they signed in the offseason who had been dealing with injury issues in the recent past, Austin Eckler, Zach Ertz, have looked really good in the first couple of games. I really like their running back tandem. I mean, to have Brian Robinson and Austin Eckler, two very different guys on paper and in life in general, they complement each other well. And I think Brian Robinson has always sort of been underrated for his pass catching ability. So seeing him get involved in that more, having Austin Eckler, who's more shifty, Brian Robinson with his power, I think is a really nice duo. And it helps Jaden Daniels, helps any quarterback, but especially a young quarterback. So that's been a pleasant surprise, seeing these veterans, seeing that running back tandem. Not a surprise at all, but still disappointing is the offensive line.
Yeah, and I think let's stick with because Eckler and Ertz were big additions, and just watching Eckler run the other day and just kind of swerving in and out, it's kind of like I feel like
he's like a skier out there. The way he just,
and because you wondered about just what you always wonder what those guys have left. I think what they're doing. You always have to throw, if they stay healthy, attach them. But I think that's for any player. But there's no reason to think that this won't continue with them.
You'd like to think so. Ertz, I'm less sure of. I'm not sure of either of them. I shouldn't say that. I'm not sure of either of them, but I like how they're using Eckler alongside Brian Robinson. They're sort of 1A, 1B, but Eckler's not taking the bigger load here.
Right,
And he
right.
knows he's not in position to do that. He's 29. He's been in the league for a while. If they did that to him and made him the true quote unquote starter, which I hate that label even for running backs anymore. It's stupid. But his body wouldn't be able to handle it, and he knows it. Now they're maximizing what he can do, and it works so well with Brian Robinson, and helps the O-line, of course. It's weird seeing this team have a run game again.
Right, and I like the concepts, and I think they also have, like, I think Ertz did a nice job blocking in the game. I think Bates does a good job. I got to be honest. I think you got to get some more consistent blocking out of the receivers, and I think number 17's got to be more consistent with that. Just because I think that's how you get your big runs, and there are a couple of runs that didn't work, or plays that didn't work. You've got to get the consistent blocking outside. That's what some really top teams get. But I agree. Like, I like Robinson ran really angry, but I also like, Nicki, some of the concepts they use and what they're doing with that. And the line's going to get heat for some protection and all that. But here's the other thing: if I'm another defense, like, I'm going to keep sending guys at them, and just because I don't, can they handle that? And Wiley, I thought did a nice job in the run game, but gets beat inside in the pass a lot, right? So that's going to be a concern for me. But with Ertz, like, is that, you view that as sustainable for him?
I want to think so. He is getting older. He has had his injuries in the past. He's looks healthy now, is playing well now. So you'd like to think so. And he's showing what makes him so valuable, especially in this offense with this group where they don't really have a bigger receiver. They don't really have a true threat outside of Terry. So he's not just a luxury, Zach Ertz. He's a necessity, because he's the only other pass catcher that can take some heat off Terry. My fears for that reason, you hope they don't overuse him, but it seems like they have a sound plan in place.
What do you think? What do you expect from Noah Brown going forward?
I expect more of what he did in this game. I thought he looked good. He had that one deep catch that, that's why they brought him in here. He's not the type of player, from what I've seen. He's not going to light up the stat sheet, but to get those big chunk plays, that's what you need him for. Just to have that threat.
And he was. That was a big deal I think, a nice pickup, because I think he can help you in multiple ways. But if he's getting open there and they already trust him to do that, I think he can be a help for them. So which is obviously a good thing. By the way, one thing on the defense, because someone keeps pointing out here, like, I'm not making it, like, the defensive tackles have to be better. That's true. They're also getting double teamed very often. That's also very true. So yes, like, you still need to make plays in the pass game when you get singled up, and when you have to apply pressure. That's also part of that's going to go back to, can you cover long enough to help those guys get there? So that's where it's hand in hand. But I would agree, like, they're not playing at an all-pro level. Like, those all-pros beat those. But they are getting double teamed a lot. So, like, just to be clear on that. Anyways, with Terry, what, this is this another slow start, because, like, what did you see? Do you agree? Like, I thought he and Jaden had some pretty good chemistry this summer developing.
Definitely. And I think it will continue to grow. I think everything's different once you get in the regular season. Things are faster. You're playing against, the starting defense. They weren't playing against the full starting crew in preseason. So I think it'll continue to develop. I think Terry had at least what I would consider. I was looking across other websites to see if they actually accounted for a drop. It didn't look like Pro Football Focus did, but I don't agree with a lot of what they do. It didn't give him. It looked like at least one, maybe two passes were dropped that were catchable. But again, similar to the tackles, like he outside of Ertz, who isn't playing nearly the snaps that Terry is, he's really their only threat in the pass game. That's why I think it's paramount to get Brian Robinson, Eckler even more involved in the pass game, because I mean Robinson broke off a couple big catch and runs there.
Right.
So yeah, he's defenses bracket him. They can double. It's it makes it so much more difficult on him. But like the tackles, you still got to find a way to get open. And I felt like there were so many instances with the receivers as a whole where Jaden's just scrambling trying to find anybody, and it just wasn't there. So yeah, I mean this is the lowest first 2 weeks Terry has had numbers wise in his career. But the circumstances are different each year. I'm sure he's facing more bracketed coverage. So similar to the DTs is how I would say it.
Yeah, and I think eventually he'll get his, because I do think, I mean, shoot, in week 1, he's open for the 70-yarder, right? And then there was another play where where I think as Jaden Daniels grows, that Daniels would have worked to him on the particular play, which may have been another 30 or 40 yards. You know what I mean? So I think like there were opportunities that game for them to connect more. That in this game, I kind of think they took him out of it, and with the coverage, like just a lot of zone, and you forced kind of underneath quick throws, whatever. So I'm not worried about that just yet. With Jaden, what have been your early impressions so far?
I thought he's looked good. I know much has been made about the number of times he's run the ball, and I get it, but I think in context, it's kind of been necessary. There have been a few where you're like, okay, he could have maybe gotten this guy. I don't think there have been any blatant missed opportunities where a guy is standing wide open. I think it's more of, yeah, he probably could have given that guy a shot. But I like his decision-making overall. The only thing you worry about is how many hits can he withstand a game? And, he's not a bigger quarterback. He's quite lanky. And I think seeing that one hit that he took to the ribs where it knocked the wind out of him, I think that was sort of not a wake-up call, because we all knew that this was a possibility, but another reminder that, you can't, hang him out there too long. But I thought he looks good. He looks poised. He doesn't ever seem rattled. He never stops. I mean, he's always playing till the very end. There's always that urgency. They talk about finishing nonstop. You always see that with Jaden. I just wish he had a little bit more help around him, both with the line and skill players. But again, it's year 1 for this group, for this regime. So,
did you come away after, because there was a kind of a weird game. Red zone, we know what happened. Bad, right? 425 yards, pretty good, right?
Yeah.
37 minutes control. So how do you what's your bigger takeaway from that? Like, hey, they can get this going, or what was your takeaway from that?
With the red zone and not
with just the offense in general, because they moved the hell out of the ball. I mean, they didn't punt. I don't know when the last time Tress Way stood on the sidelines like that the whole game.
I do. I looked it up. It was only one other game.
I had you wouldn't believe it. Some of us have people who bug the hell out of them next to him in a game. So I think that's you who has that. Not
no. I forgot what it could. Yeah, I mean, I think you.
When was the last time you didn't punt?
I think it was 20. I looked this up. I think it was 2020. It was only one other time.
All right. Well, you would look it up, and now you can't tell me the answer?
Well, I don't remember what I did yesterday, let alone what Tress Way did 6 years ago or whatever. But take a look at my tweets.
There was only one time?
There's only one other time.
Okay. So there you go. So what's your then takeaway up with the offense?
I mean, like you said, they moved the ball well, but I think part of it, too, is something that I wasn't thrilled with the play calls in the red zone. To me, I thought they could have done more to help Jaden. But, yeah, they got to figure that out. I feel like that's been an issue with 3 different coordinators here for the last 4 years is finishing drives. And I don't know why exactly. I don't know like what, everything gets tighter in the red zone, obviously, but it's just not working. I think that again is where you need everybody on their details. Like you need guys to get open and to create, and then you need them to be on the same page with Jaden. And that sounds obvious and simplistic. I realize it's much harder to do when you're in that situation, but I think they ran the ball most of the time in the red zone, right?
Yes. And so that's, that was their thing. Like, first of all, if you knew what the answer was, you wouldn't be
Yeah,
sitting here talking to me. So
exactly.
that's one thing.
Yeah.
So the other, I mean, obviously you can't keep committing penalties in there because they kept putting
Yeah,
themselves
false
like they're
starts. I mean, God, that's been an issue since the start of training camp, and they're
right,
still doing it. I
right.
just don't.
That's what I don't get because in a lot of times there was, hard counts. They're like, was that offsides? Nope. Another false start. So that has been an issue. I don't know why, but it has. And, that's one thing that should be easy to correct. Give yourself a better chance. I also think, because he's obviously got the legs. They all know he's going to run at some point, or that I'm sure. Sorry, they all know he can do that. So I think they're going to be very aware, and
Yeah.
they'll probably play a lot of zone down there, which should regulate things. But it's not like there've been a lot of times where he just missed a guy or something like that, right? And I think that's going to be a hard one to fix. But I do think the run game becomes more important down there, and to balance it
Yeah.
out a little bit. And the more better you run down there, the better offense you're going to have in the red zone. So that's all there is
Right.
to it. So,
Right.
but we'll see. I think because if they can get that, that's the next step. And I think that's what I'm curious to see. Do they build on that? How do they
Yeah.
build on that game? Because that's the step. And Julian's calling to go to bed now. So
Yes.
if you got to run, Nicki, go ahead. And I'll close it up shop
Sure.
here.
Unless
But-
everybody wants to hear him scream at the top of his lungs, which I'm assuming your
No.
listeners don't.
No,
So-
and we hear his mom scream at the top of her lungs. We don't need to hear her son hear that. Anyways,
how do you put up with
I don't know.
it?
Anyway, Nicki, I'm going to stand here for a couple more minutes. Nicki, I appreciate you joining me, and let people know where they can find you before you go.
You can find me on Twitter at NICKIJHABVALA or at the Washington Post, WashingtonPost.com/sports.
Cool. All right, Nicki, thanks a lot. I'm going to stick on here for 5 more minutes to answer a couple questions, but I appreciate you taking the time. And thanks a lot, Julian, for giving us your mom for a few minutes.
Yeah.
See ya.
Bye, guys.
See ya. Anyway, folks, so for me, the red zone comes down to a lot about just the, quit the penalties. And then I think for Jaden, the more experience he gets, first of all, I think you hit more big plays and you give yourself more chances inside there, maybe some longer touchdowns, but also just knowing one thing I really appreciate about him is he takes care of the ball very well. He makes when he's throwing it or when he's not, he makes good decisions. The only time where I questioned the decision was when he ran one time, he tried to scramble on 2nd and 8 and he lost 5 yards. Now you're putting yourself in a really bad spot. So I think that's for him, it's an experience thing. I think the one thing I really like about Daniels is I think he's going to learn. And it's funny, Kevin, I spent a lot of time obviously talking to people about his college days and watching his college film and how he progressed from year 1 to year 2 at LSU. And at year 1 at LSU, it was get your first and second read, and then you're going to run. And then all the work he did turned him into a much better passer and much more getting through his progressions at the VR stuff, the film work. That's all the stuff he does. So it's going to get better for him in all those areas and keeping his eyes downfield. So I think you're going to get, but they have, to me, running the ball well down there is a key. But, I say that, and then they had a nice run by Eckler, and then it gets botched because of a false start. So that's where, let's see them quit the penalties first and then see what they can do, because you can, and no sacks down there on 2nd down and et cetera. So don't hurt yourself and then give yourself a chance. Because I do think, I'm curious to see too how Noah Brown helps down there, because he's not a huge target, but he's a bigger target than what they also have. And, I talked about this on my the game review podcast as well. Like, they had a couple opportunities. One, if you remember the bobble snap that he had, where Zacchaeus is going to run a jet action off that, it was wide open around the end. I mean, it was wide open. There's a chance that he scores. He'd have to make a guy miss, but he's certainly going to get a first down in that play, and you keep the drive going and with another chance for a touchdown instead of kicking a long field goal. but he it was a chance there, right? And there was a run by Robinson I felt would have had a better chance, just a little bit more better blocking by Bates and McLaurin, and then you've got a shot. Now, I don't think he scores unless he breaks a tackle from a linebacker, but you're probably you may pick up a first down. So, little things like that can make a difference. But this, to me, it was the red zone was bad, but I like what I've seen. I like what I saw from them just with the run game and then the Ertz and Eckler contributions showing that, yes, they can still play. And I think that's a good sign for them. They just need to have, I think if Brown can provide a little bit more and get Terry going early, then I think you now have a chance to be a consistent offense. And and I think we know with that defense, you're going to have to, control the clock a little bit. But the only way you're going to win by doing that is by converting into touchdowns. And can they do that? So that to me is going to be the big thing going forward. And starting Monday night in Cincinnati, that's, I'll have more of a preview of them. I'm going to have Ben Baby, who covers the Bengals for us for ESPN. I'm going to have him on later this week. I'm going to have Bram Weinstein. He and I are going to talk about a lot of stuff for Thursday's podcast. They'll do my 5 things, I think, on Sunday. So there's a lot more going on in just kind of practice reports, et cetera, to get you ready for that one. Because listen, it's the first primetime game for Jaden Daniels in a Washington uniform. I hope, there's only been 2 games, but what I've seen, it's not just what I've seen from him in these 2 games. It's what I've seen from him since he arrived in Washington in all facets, the way he conducts himself in the locker room, the way he is with others in the building, the way he is there's confidence, as Dan Quinn would say, there's confidence and there's humility with him. I think all those are really good signs, the way he works, et cetera. So I think all those things are really good. And then what he's showing so far, when I've watched some of the other rookie quarterbacks, and I haven't been able to watch a lot, so it's hard for me to say, but watching him, he doesn't come across as a rookie. There are rookie or young guy mistakes, but he doesn't come across as a rookie in terms of not, he can stand up to the moment. And I think that's what I'm curious to see on Monday is how he handles that atmosphere. And it's going to be a tough one because that's a desperate team they're going to be facing, a team that thought it could compete for a division title in the AFC North. So going to be a tough one. But again, guys like that tend to do big things in those kind of games. So we'll see. Anyways, folks, appreciate you joining me tonight. Hope you enjoyed it. Nicki always provides really good insights. So give her a read, give her a follow. Always love having her on. I think she's super smart and very sharp reporter. So, and I appreciate everybody joining me. And I'll be back on Thursday morning with Bram Weinstein, the voice of the Commanders. So, and don't forget, you Gold members, 7:30 Eastern Time Zoom on Thursday night. Join me there. Bring your questions, comments, whatever you want to do. We'll have some fun. Talk to you next time.